Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time to join today's presentation. My name is Kayla McCarthy, and I am one of the account executives here at Purview. And I focus on our newer customer accounts as well as our core imaging product, Purview Image, which we'll discuss in a little bit more today. But just a few housekeeping items. Today, everyone is on mute, and we'll use the first 15 to 20 minutes just to have some conversation between Kai and myself, and then we'll use the remaining time to go over any questions that may arise during the presentation. We did have some folks send in some questions prior to today, so we'll definitely get a chance to answer those. And then if you need to leave for any reason, the webinar is being recorded, so each of you will be receiving a copy to your email afterwards. And then my last comment would be, if you do have any additional questions, please feel free to use the chat box. I think there's also a question and answer box that you can type in your questions at any time. And we will be having someone looking at the chat box. So I will stop talking, and I would love to introduce my colleague Kai, who is joining me today. Kai and I have worked together for a couple of years. He is actually one of our project managers, and he has onboarded how many customers, Kai? Of mine, at least 50, right?
Yeah, probably close to 100 at this point.
Awesome. So do you want to just give an introduction of what you do at Purview?
Sure. Hey, everybody. My name is Kai. I'm based in the Washington, D.C. area, and I help get new customers on board with our cloud solutions. And one of the best parts is understanding and learning the stories of our doctors, our veterinarians, our researchers. So I have a lot of things to share if you're interested. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'll be happy to help share what we've learned over the past couple of years.
Perfect. Thanks, Kai. Well, for many folks that are on the line today, they have come from Horos. So feel free to put in the chat box if you have come from Horos. But Kai, if you want to speak to this a little bit about what is Horos and the relationship between Horos and Purview, I think that would be beneficial for those who are not familiar with that.
Sure. So if you're joining this webinar, you might be interested in medical imaging. Maybe you're a radiologist, maybe you're a researcher, or perhaps you're just interested in understanding different cloud solutions for your facility. Horos is as you can see on the screen, it's an open source radiology imaging viewer for Mac only. So what that means is that you can download Horos application on your computer and view medical images, including MRIs, CTs, X-rays, angiograms, things of that nature. As you can see on the second bullet, there's a pretty large community of free users in the hundreds of thousands. I think over the past couple of years, the community has grown. There are forums on the internet where lots of different users contribute to different releases and provide knowledge for the community. And as you can see on the bottom, it's sponsored by Purview. So what that essentially means is that Purview, as a company, we provide support for Horos. We manage the servers and the databases and the websites and things that help train thousands of users around the world. Right? There's an academy for Horos where we host online learning consoles for the Horos platform, and so there's a really close relationship for the past couple of years. And actually, this week, on Tuesday, on Valentine's Day, Horos actually turned 8 years old, which is very exciting. So if you've been using Horos for a while, or maybe you're just hearing about it for the first time, check it out. It's free for Mac. There's no Windows version of it currently, but right now you can get your hands on Horos and consider making a donation to that project as well, since it's supported by those thousands of users that get it for free.
Thanks, Kai. And let's dive just a little bit deeper into that. You and I both know that we've had a lot of Horos users transition into using Purview for their practice, whether that be a vet or any sort of physician. So can you kind of talk to the folks on the line on when it would be a good time to transition from Horos to Purview? And I guess this can take us to our next talking point, which is Purview Lite, which we like to kind of call a stepping stone between Horos and Purview Image. So do you want to kind of talk about what that looks like?
Yeah, so if we're looking at the screen, Purview Lite is what we often call a stepping stone. So from the first bullet, you can see it is designed to work alongside Horos, and some of the tools that are there essentially solve some of these problems. So the first bullet, access across multiple geographic locations. When we talk about Horos and we understand that it's a locally installed viewer, that means that the files actually need to be on your computer. So I like to compare that to an Excel spreadsheet. You need to have that file on your computer in order to open it. But if you go to the cloud, you can use something like Google Sheets and be able to collaborate. So Kayla, if I needed to share a document with you, I can send you a link, right? And you have access to the files online. You can download onto your computer, edit it, and then upload it back. It's very similar to that. So Horos by itself is very powerful for radiologists or veterinarians to view the images, but how do we collaborate? How do they collaborate? So we created Purview Image and Purview Lite as a way to create a central access point. We allow the images to be uploaded to the cloud, and then we can actually grant user access. So Kayla, let's say you are a referring physician, or let's say you need access to the scans for whatever reason. Maybe you're a patient, you got your scans done, and you need to share that with a specialist on your next visit. Purview Lite allows the users of Horos to send their studies to a cloud and get it to where it needs to go without the use of CDs or needing to keep track in an email service. As you can see, there are some other cool functions like reporting. We can do online reporting. So those files, those image files, and those annotated reports or text reports are linked together online, which is super valuable. Because if you think about it, when we work with these doctors, they often tell me, man, I'm having a really hard time. It's very difficult to get files to where they need to go because I need to burn a CD and I give it to the patient. They're going to lose the CD, or the CD breaks, or they take it to the doctor and the doctor doesn't even have a drive, a disk drive. And so Purview Lite and Purview Image allow these doctors to click a button, and then literally in seconds, the image files and the report files are securely sent over to the recipient. So that's really cool, and we've heard a lot of good feedback on this particular platform to make images and reports available anytime, anywhere.
And one thing to kind of piggyback off of that is a lot of people love the idea of having a centralized place to have it. I'm sure a lot of the people on the line today, maybe you've had one Mac or a couple different, your images are all over the place, and you want a centralized place to store images and reports as well. So that's where Purview comes in as well. And a good way to think about Purview is essentially just a website. It's a good way to, you can sign on from any device and access your reports as well. And so then that leads us to our final one, which is Purview Image, which is our core imaging product. And Kai, do you want to explain the major difference between Purview Lite and Purview Image and why someone would choose one versus the other?
Sure. Yeah. So as we talk about it, and we got us a little sneak peek of the comparison, the problems that are solved by Purview Lite essentially are, an oncologist, let's say, is a Horos user. They download it for free and they're using it to compare MRIs and CTs of the patients during the treatment process, right? But these files are pretty large, right? When you have image files and these scans with thousands and thousands of images, it takes up space on your computer, right? And so one of the problems that we solve is making sure that your computer has storage space so that it can perform properly. Now, where does that storage go? If it sits on an external drive at your practice, it can get lost or destroyed. But if you put it into the cloud, it's offsite and it's backed up so you can access it whenever you need and share. Now, that's essentially Purview Lite, is that website. Now, Purview Image, in the name, it actually says image. And the reason why we have it like that is because we provide a web-based medical image viewer. Now, a lot of the attendees on this webinar have used Horos before, so they know all of the different, they may know all the different tools, whether it's reconstruction or annotations or things like that. For the web viewer, it functions the same, right? You get all the different tools, whether it's MIP, NPR, 3D. You can do collaboration, which means you can screen share. And the problem that we're solving here with Purview Image is, if you need to collaborate and have access to the actual scans online on any device, this is a good platform for you. What we found is that imaging centers that need to share access to the scans that they perform for the patients, they've probably historically burned CDs, but now they can share links directly with the specialist that allows the specialist to open that file on any device. And it's very convenient for the recipient because they can use it on a Mac or on a Windows or on a tablet or a phone because it's web-based. And
with that,
yeah,
it is nice that they don't have to have an account. That's one question that we get a lot. So I could be able to
yeah.
send it to, anyone, and we are HIPAA compliant. So they would just need to know if they're sending, PHI, they would just have to have the last name and the date of birth, but it's just a very simple way to send.
Yeah, yeah. All of that is to say that if you're having problems with if you're having problems with storage, or if you have problems with sharing images to whoever needs them, whether it's the patient or your client, if you're having problems managing your workflow where your reports are in one system and your viewing is in another system, what we've done over the past few years is listen to the feedback of the users and create a purpose-built platform that allows whoever needs access to the images or the report to find them or to get access to them securely on the cloud on any device. And the feedback that we've heard is that it makes life easier. It saves us money because we're not burning CDs. It's super easy to share a link, and it is compliant with in the United States HIPAA, and then in other regions of the world, it's compliant to GDPR and different regulations as well. So it saves time, it saves money, and it helps build referrals, is what we've heard.
Thanks, Kai. Okay, so let's say I'm a doctor and I am taking ultrasounds and x-rays.
Mhm.
How on earth do I get my images to Purview Image? How does that work?
Sure. Yeah. So with the with Purview Image, it functions as a PACS, picture archiving and communication system. What that essentially means is that we can work with the doctor and perhaps any IT teams, or perhaps if it's a smaller practice and it's only the doctor, they might not have specialized IT. We make it really easy to make a connection between your machine, like maybe it's an MR or the ultrasound or X-ray in your example, to the cloud. It's essentially 3 pieces of information: an AE title, IP, and port. Those are numbers and characters that will provide to you and help you do the setup, essentially get your images into the cloud. Once it's there, it's accessible anytime and anywhere.
Thanks. And what if they can't figure this out? Do we offer any sort of customer service? I mean, I've heard a little bit about it, but can you talk to
Sure.
us about that?
Yeah, I mean, I work with the customer support team on our side. They're very responsive. They're very helpful. What we want to do is we want to make the imaging and reporting and the medical record process for the cloud as easy as possible. So we'll actually go on the phone with the patients. We'll talk to the IT contractors. We'll talk to the doctors, and we'll talk to whoever needs the information to make sure that your records are available in the cloud. And right now the support team is boasting a 99% satisfaction rate over the past year, and the response time is their goal is to respond within 5 minutes. So the support and the customer service graduating from Horos to Purview is very much a differentiator of us compared to other providers in the industry.
And one thing I was thinking that we didn't mention, Kai, with Purview Image, we understand that some people have been using Horos for years, the viewer, and they still use a Mac. I think Kai and I, we both use Macs, and they prefer to have that viewer. So Horos is actually integrated within the Purview Image platform. Obviously, with Purview Lite, you can use Horos as well. But that's a good point to make. I just wanted to point that out. So with Purview Image, you have the option of either viewing your images if you're on a Mac within Horos, or you can use that web-based viewer. And then, of course, do any reporting in there as well. And one thing that we didn't mention is the system does allow for unlimited users. So you can add new users into the system as you continue to grow. We've watched a lot of our practices grow. Kai, can you think of, I know I'm putting you on the spot with this, but have you thought of any customers that we can share that, started off maybe with Horos and have grown into either using Purview Lite or Purview Image, and how that improved their workflow?
Sure. Right. So I was actually speaking with a couple of customers this week. One example is a specialty veterinary hospital in Ireland that actually graduated, we say from Horos local storage to Purview Lite, where they're actually storing all of the images that they produce on site, CTs, X-rays, and MRI in the cloud. How it helped them was that it allowed them to have everything centralized. Previously, they had images on this machine, on that machine, on that machine. Just imagine if you had all your files on different computers. It'd be so frustrating to access that. So for doctors, our job is to, and our joy, is to make their life a little bit easier. So veterinary practices use Horos and they graduate to the cloud. Orthopedic specialists that need access to the images, prior to surgery, they'll use Purview Image because they can. There's actually an example of a surgeon in the United States that actually travels. He flies his own plane from practice to practice, and he uses Purview either on his mobile device or at the different practice locations to stream the images from the cloud prior to surgery. So whether it's human medicine or veterinary medicine, and even for research, actually, during the pandemic, there was a research facility in Brazil where the regulations were that they could not perform autopsies. When they performed autopsies, they had to store the images of the deceased patients in a different system. And previously, when they were using Horos, all those scans were intermingled. So they utilized Purview as a separate system, for those patients who unfortunately died from COVID-19. And it allowed them to have central access to those particular scans. So whether it's research or veterinary or human medicine, there's always problems that can be solved with Horos and Purview Image.
With research, that does bring up a good point. We got a lot of questions prior to today's webinar about anonymization of studies. We work with a lot of universities, individuals that are doing clinical trials. So can you speak to how that works within Purview or Horos, and how our customers can ensure that that the information is safe?
Right. So I'm actually working on an implementation for a facility right now where they're requesting images. So let me frame it like this. When images are uploaded to the cloud, they need to have certain pieces of information in order to be compliant: name, patient ID, date of birth, things like that. And often for research, in order to comply with the actual control, the scientific control of the research, and perhaps regulation for privacy, they'll need to anonymize or remove any identifying information. So instead of having Kai as the patient name, they put John or John Doe, things like that. They'll adjust the field. So in Horos, there actually is a tool that some of our attendees on the webinars might know about. There's actually a tool called Anonymize where you can select which fields to change, and that makes it really easy for anybody who wants to use the free platform of Horos to remove the information from the imaging study while making sure the images are not affected. It's just the text. So Horos makes it really easy to adjust that information. And when you upload it to the cloud, those changes are saved. And so when you use the Purview website, you can share those anonymized images with whoever needs them, whether it's across city lines or even country lines. It makes it really easy to access those.
Cool. Thanks, Kai. And we're at that 20-minute mark, so I'm going to pause and I'm going to show this graphic that we put together. And this is just a comparison of the three that we've discussed so far today: Horos, Purview Lite, and Purview Image. So we'll leave this on the screen for a bit for you to take a look at. But we can move on also to the question and answer portion of this session. We have, again, been getting in some questions. So one of the questions that we do have is the type of modalities that we support, and is there any modality that Purview would not connect to?
No, so long as the images are in DICOM compliant format, which if you have an imaging modality that can communicate with a PACS, it's likely going to be DICOM compliant. So whether it's veterinary, human, or research, you're probably looking at the same type of scans for radiology. You got your CTs, MRs, ultrasounds, X-rays, whether it's digital or even tomography. We've been working with those. There's also things like nuclear medicine, and angiograms, those types of scans. If it's in DICOM format, we'll be able to get it into our cloud. And if you have a machine that can communicate to the cloud during your setup, we'll be able to help you get those connected as well.
And so just some clarification on Purview Lite and Purview Image by looking at this graphic. So a good way, again, just to summarize the difference between Purview Lite and Purview Image is Purview Image is compatible on any device you have that web-based viewer that you can access at any time. With Purview Lite, it again is designed to be used with your viewer of choice. So whether that be Horos or any other viewer, just wanted to clarify that. So then we are getting some questions about what happens to old studies. Let's say I'm using vendor X for my packs right now, and I want to switch to Purview. What would that look like? And Kai, also as a project manager, can you speak to what a customer can expect once they sign on with Purview? Talking about like timeline and just project plan, what that kind of looks like?
Right. So when a customer comes to Purview, they usually find us, on a webinar like this, or perhaps they're using Horos and they have a desire to solve some sort of problem. And maybe they have a lot of scans on the computer, just like we mentioned, the oncologist that has all these CT and MR scans. Once they find Purview and they sign up for a plan, they're assigned a project manager. So for my customers and for all of the customers at Purview, what we'll do is we'll perform a kickoff call, which invites the client, perhaps any third-party IT vendors, or maybe a modality vendor, or any staff who are involved in that process, and review the milestones. We're going to need to connect this machine to the cloud. We're going to need to do training at this particular time, and we're switching from this system on this particular date. So we'll need to have the Purview cloud up and running at this time. So we'll set the scope and the schedule with the customer. And regarding old data, which we often call legacy data, we'll provide instructional documents on how to consolidate, those files to make it easier for us to get into our cloud. And that process can take, a couple of weeks, depending on how large the data is. It could be a couple of gigabytes, could be terabytes. But during the onboarding process, all of our customers can expect to get a dedicated project manager and account manager that's looking over the technical implementation as well as any business concerns. And what we found is that we're able to get customers up and running, trained, at least within 2 weeks of the kickoff call. And then the legacy data, depending on how large that is, that could be a project that takes weeks and sometimes even months.
So thanks, Kai. And so with Purview, I think it's pretty clear that it is a completely cloud-based system, but there are still some questions around what additional equipment. I know a lot of vendors say, oh, yes, we're completely in the cloud, but what should a customer expect to have to, buy on top of Purview? Is there anything?
No, I mean, we work, what do we call out of the box. So since we're a website, as long as you have workstations or mobile devices that can access the images in the cloud, like my smartphone or perhaps your computer, the cloud is accessible on a website. Type in, www.image.purview.net, and then you can get access to, your cloud account. And every customer has their own dedicated, unique cloud instance. So all of your data is protected and secure within your particular instance. And depending on where you are in the world, we'll have an appropriate regulatory compliant place for your data. And one of the things that I've seen is that since it is web-based, it is great for collaboration. So actually, one of the questions that I can see in the Q&A is during collaboration, is it now possible for all viewers to control the mouse? For example, if one viewer has a question about a particular finding, can they point to what they're concerned about so that all viewers can see? That's a great question. What we provide on the web-based viewer is a way for, let's say, Kayla and I are looking at a particular image. The way that we get there is that, I actually will share an electronic link to Kayla. She'll open it up on her browser and we're both looking at it. There's a simple button that you click that allows you to connect my my view of the scans and then Kayla's view.
Like a
And
sharing
actually,
of a screen.
yeah, it's essentially a share screen that you'll actually be able to see my cursor, and I'll be able to see Kayla. So I'll see Kayla's logged in, and I'll see a little yellow cursor that shows what she's talking about. And typically, in order to facilitate that process, a user, will give the other person a call, or just get some sort of synchronous communication so that I can talk to Kayla and say, hey, I'm looking at this particular scan here. Can you see my mouse? And I scroll through the CT scan and say, oh, here, right here. And then I can make an annotation on the screen that also changes what she sees. So it reflects and allows for synchronous communication. And yeah, it's really easy.
And with that, you were starting to, I think, address it earlier, but we were talking about how we have unlimited users, and we did get a question about, and let me pull it up, but they were asking, if I use Purview with a group of doctors, can we each have our own separate logins, individual work lists, permissions, access to studies? And they're asking this because of privacy reasons. Can you speak to that in the last couple minutes that we have, Kai?
Yep. Purview make it really easy for you to create users. You can control what access they get to different scans, either by assignment or perhaps based on a DICOM field. Like you can say, this doctor should be able to see these scans. This doctor should see these scans. We make it really easy to do that, and it comes free with the platform.
Awesome. Thanks, Kai. Well, we will, we know that we have about 3 minutes left. Kai, is there any additional, a one-liner, something you want to, an elevator pitch? I don't know. Do you want to share with our audience today?
Sure. If you've been using Horos for a long time, you know that having access to medical imaging is important. If you're finding that storage space or collaboration or mobility is a concern, consider looking into Purview's cloud-based platform, whether it's Image, where you can look at the scans on the web, or perhaps the lighter version. It's a little bit more economical. Consider looking into these options to solve the problems that you have, and make sure to give us a phone call. We'll be happy to help, and we'll be happy to work with you as partners.
Love that. Thanks, Kai. But yes, thank you all for joining today's webinar. We really do appreciate you taking the time out of your day to listen in. And thank you for everyone that did submit some questions for today's session. If for some reason we missed one, we will follow up individually. You can expect an email from me by the end of the business day today. But again, thank you all for joining today's webinar. I hope you found it beneficial, and you all will also be receiving a copy of this if you want to look back at it at some point or share it out with a colleague. So thank you all for joining today, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.